An infectious current of freedom tore through Africa in the 1950s. A continent largely ruled by European powers woke up and demanded self-government from their colonial masters.
Sardauna and our great friend Auro from the west, Azikwe from the east, Ahmad Bello from the north. They ganged up together to fight for Nigeria's independence.
For Nigeria, it's a year of very great events. We attained our independence on the 1st of October.
And now the race course for the greatest ceremony of all, Nigeria's independence at midnight on September the 30th, 1960. The bands of the Royal Marines, the Queen's Own Nigeria Regiment and the police open the tattoo. Then police motorcyclists show their skill. There are 12 of them, all trainees, and they give a display of cycling which is extremely skillful.
We all attended the independence celebration. We were all at the stadium. I was seated behind my father.
I was the only person in the whole of the VIP's time who did not sit on a chair, because all the chairs were taken up by VIPs. I can't forget that day for a number of reasons. One of them was the fireworks.
I was in Lagos together with my late father, Sultan Abubakar III, at the late race course in Lagos. At midnight, they put off the lights, brought down the British flag, and put full light as they put up the Nigerian flag.
What I loved most, I think, was when the jets flew over the stadium that morning, and you feel that thunderous, occasion.
I was in school for the first time, maybe the last time, in that school. We were served jollof rice on that day. It was a party. Mama had made my sister and I a special fabric that was made for the independence, so we wore our independence outfit. And it was really a very festive mood in school. It was a very memorable day.
All enlightened Nigerians are determined to ensure that Nigeria remains united. But not all Nigerians are enlightened. Not all Nigerians are enlightened, but the majority, quite a good number, are enlightened, and the majority are politically conscious to realize the advantages that accrue from Nigeria remaining as a single nation.
The whole idea is to get together so that Nigeria could grow up as one single country. Believe it or not, at the time, everybody was believing about one single country. All these divisions that you found later, it was all developed later. But from the very beginning, there was only one single Nigeria. Everyone was proud of one single Nigeria. I'm a Nigerian. I was not a Yoruba man. I'm not so. Everybody was a Nigerian, and we're all proud of being Nigerians.
If I am asked whether I'm happy because Nigeria is free and the Nigerian government appears to be stable and the people of Nigeria are apparently satisfied that the price of freedom and the price our leaders paid for it were worth the sacrifice, I would answer in the affirmative.
The honeymoon did not last long. Crisis after crisis crippled the infant democracy. There was the workers' strike, the creation of the Midwestern state, the Adaka Borough revolt in the Niger Delta, and the Western region crisis. On January the 15th, 1966, Nigeria's experiment with self-rule stuttered to a bloody halt. The army took over the reins of power.
The man at present being put forward is the army commander, General Agui Ironsi, who arrived at the heavily guarded Parliament buildings to hold the new administration's first press conference.
The federal military government of Nigeria has taken over the administration of the country. Functions of the federal military government will be exercised by the Supreme Military Council, and details of which will be announced later. Permanent secretaries in charge of federal ministries will continue in their office, carrying out the normal functions of government, and they shall be directly responsible to federal military government when constituted.
May I ask the General whether he regards his administration as a permanent or a caretaker administration?
My main concern is to restore law and order as soon as possible.
I think the first coup was the greatest mistake. The first coup. When you look at the leaders at that time, Balewa, Azikiwe, Awolowo, Sardauna, most of them died without a penny. They were working. I remember in the north, Sardauna educated us, sent us to school. We had boarding primary schools. We paid no fees. We were clothed, uniformed, fed, and we went to secondary school. The same thing. Those were leaders who knew the value of leadership. That coup brought the end of a very bright future for this country. When this country had an independence, they were about a par with Brazil. But today we are not even 10% of Brazil.
Chief Obafemi Awolowo, with his many talents and discipline and courage, with all that he did for Western region, I want you to remember that Western region had television, the first television in Africa, and that before France. I remember one of the prime ministers of Great Britain saying Awolowo had the mental capacity to run an American Britain together.
Ironsi was toppled in a bloody coup 6 months later. General Yakubu Gowon, who succeeded him, led Nigeria into a long, destructive civil war.
From the no man's land near the front lines, children are brought in starving. If the war goes on and the refugees prefer any fate rather than pass under federal control, mass starvation will again kill many of the 6 million Biafrans now crowded into their shrinking territory.
We have fought a long, bitter battle, and it has ended in a victory for common sense.
After the war, Gowon reneged on a promise to hand over power to civilians in 1976. A restless political class grumbled. The army listened. This was the moment Gowon was told he had been overthrown while attending the OAU summit.
I appreciate this very much, and with regard to the black peoples all over the world, I think
After the assassination of General Muratala Muhammad, his deputy, General Olusegun Obasanjo, took the political transition program to its promised end.
I never contemplated coming into government. I joined the army to soldier. When the unexpected happened of those who carried out the coup in 1975, invited 3 of us, late Muritala, myself, and Yakubu Danjuma, to take over the reins of government and the reins of the military. We accepted to do our best for the country. And of course, those who carried out the coup and invited us obviously had certain amount of confidence in us and trust in us. And so they didn't give us any blueprint or anything except to say, run the affairs of the country and the military well.
Nigeria's return to democracy was colorful. Although there were 5 candidates contesting for the presidency, the contest came down to 2 figures from the First Republic. A former minister, Shehu Shagari, and a former leader of the opposition, Obafemi Awolowo.
The first time I saw him was in Ekene, but he was disappointed. But again, he took it in his stride because he was satisfied that he had done his best, that he had passed the message across to the people as best as he could. He could not do more. And if that was the decision, then so be it.
Nigeria's second experiment with democracy was shorter than the first. The same ills that bedeviled the country in the 1960s returned in the 80s. 4 years, 3 months later, the army returned to power.
Fraud, indiscipline, corruption, squandermania, misuse and abuse of public office for self or group aggrandizement, which had assumed debilitating proportions in the last few years, will be dealt with ruthlessly, no matter whoever may be involved. The private sector has also put care of crime.
Take this opportunity to declare once again, therefore, that this administration attaches the greatest importance to constructive and helpful criticisms as well as the freedom of the press, and to declare further that the administration also attaches the greatest importance of fundamental human rights.
General Babangida delighted Nigerians when he unveiled a transition program that would terminate military rule in 1990. But as the months rolled into years, the only thing certain about the transition was its uncertainty. Elections were held and cancelled. Candidates were clear to run for the presidency and banned. By 1992, the road to civil rule was as unclear as it had been on that August day in 1985 when General Babangida took over.
IBB had been running a transition program that totally lacked credibility. He had proposed a civilian rule timetable that he wasn't faithful to. And in every regard, you know, he had totally lost all his political credit capital.
From August 1995, when I became the military president, by 1 week after that, the Nigerians said I didn't want to move. I was 7 days in office. So to me, it doesn't matter. I knew what I wanted to achieve, and I went all out for it.
The senior military class early that year had a meeting at the Command Officers Mess Marina and agreed that at all costs, elections must be conducted and the military should completely get off the scene.
Come down. Come down. Every time when I increase the price of my motor, it go be like make my passenger cut my neck. The price of motor, they go up. The price of tire, they go up. If Gary Wayman, they chop, in price, they go up every day. I can't they look television yesterday. Now I see this man with them called Tofa. If I say the man gets sense, so now I go vote for. Tofa is the answer.
On June 12th, vote for a man who knows your problems and knows how to solve them. Vote Bashir Othman Tofa for president. Vote NRC. Tofa is the answer.
My brother, waiting you they think, oh, my sister, help don't come, SDP, MKO, Kingibe, action, MKO, Kingibe, SDP, progress. Abiola na the hope, SDP na the party to solve our problem and better our life, oh, MKO, 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 action, Abiola, 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 progress. Now him be the hope for better tomorrow.
Babangida on his own decided to create two parties, one to the left and one to the center, SDP and NRC. Single-handedly picked his two friends, MK Abiola for SDP and Alhaji Tofa for NRC. These two people were handpicked by him. They are his personal friends. They were allowed to campaign. They were provided security.
Pressure on me was heavier
We had interest as military, interest in making sure that the right man is put in place. Bashir Tofa, yes, he's my friend. Mashhur Abiola, yes, he's my friend. So typical Nigerians, they will say either way, he's a winner.
Basic things like libraries. There are no books in many libraries. In primary schools, in secondary schools, there are no laboratory equipment. Boys doing their honors degree in sciences do what they call theoretical practical. No puppet, no test tubes.
It was a contest, quite frankly, between the people, the politicians, and generally the political class, and elements of the military who did not want the country to progress towards democratic governance. So the stakes were very high indeed.
Without blowing my horns or beating my drums, I can say that there had never been a campaign that was so well organized and so comprehensively done as my own campaign.
The mandate given to us: reform the system, restore confidence in the system, get Nigerians involved. And we got Nigerians. We had articulate team. We were carrying Nigerians along with us. Questions were asked. I held media discussion, press conferences periodically, cleared air where people didn't understand. So increasingly, Nigerians developed confidence in the system. And I bet you that's why when even after all the conventions, before we come to the re-election, presidential election, Nigerians didn't mind Muslim ticket because the we consciousness had developed at highest level. Nigerians have begun to think of themselves as Nigerians, not as Igbos, not as Yorubas, not as Hausas, not as minorities. They saw in themselves something that tied them as economic interest. They identified with Nigeria. It was the mood of the nation when we started preparing for the mother of all the elections, the presidential election of 1993.
It was very much part of the free, fair, and peaceful process that we observed everywhere. The conduct of the election was really impressive, and then the fact that it continues to be recognized as the most peaceful election that Nigeria has ever had.
I think we were lucky in the general election because the candidate that faced us, Tofa, was himself not convinced that he was going to be president. So his campaign was a bit lackluster. He didn't put too much effort because Abiola's popularity was overwhelming and his support was quite intimidating.
We are very confident also that we will win this election because we didn't see any reason why we could not win that election. People liked us. All the important people in the country, sympathize with our views and what we intend to do.
I knew at the time that those elections and elections results were coming out. There is no way he, Bashir Tofa, could have won. Because based on what we have seen on the ground, he couldn't have won.
It was a most historic election. A day that we forgot, Nigeria forget about religious differences. A day that Nigeria had two Muslim candidates, but MK Abiola and Babagana Kim Gibe, won across the country. A day where we crossed and crushed all the tribal differences. Because he won, he got 2/3 in the East all the way through. And he crushed his opponent in Kano, metropolitan Kano. It was a thunderous, loud explosion throughout Africa.
At every local government level, I was getting the results. We were telling them in the command center, and we were releasing the results on a state-by-state, even before INEC got the results.
We all had the results from every polling unit. We had the collated results from all the local governments, from all the states. And we were just waiting. It was just the result of Taraba that was outstanding.
Taraba reported the victory for SDP, MKO Abiola, but they have to bring the certified document to the Central Coalition Center controlled by the military. The National Electoral Commission was stopped abruptly from further counting, further announcement, because of one state, the state of Taraba. That was how the crisis and the suspicion started.
Nwosu insisted that every commissioner from every state should present his results in person, even though we had all the results and there was no controversy.
On the 23rd of June, 1993, around 10 o'clock in the morning, an officer called me from Asarok to say that a press release had just been issued to the effect that the June 12th election results have been announced and that NEC has been disbanded. I said, why the president? You say he's on his way to Katsina to attend the burial of Alhaji Musa Yaradua, the father of late Shehu Yaradua, General Shehu Yaradua, who died that morning. I joke that I hope it's not this announcement that has killed the old man.
My reaction was one of incredulity because President Babangida was with us at the burial ceremony, and he had just left. And clearly, the way he interacted with everybody did not indicate to me that he had foreknowledge of a decision that he might have taken before coming to Katsina. So I didn't believe it.
Quite frankly, for many people and for many of us, it was very, very shocking to hear that Professor Nwosu had been directed to stop counting the votes. And we later discovered that this was done at gunpoint, that even armored tanks were being moved around INEC headquarters then.
All of us in the Western Diplomatic Corps who had been working so hard in support of that process were quite frankly angry. We felt that the Nigerian people were being badly let down.
After the annulment, Nigeria drifted through half a decade of crisis, uncertainty, and fear that the country that had stayed one under self-rule for 33 years may come apart. Journalists and human rights activists bore the brunt of the ire of the military. There were detentions, imprisonments, assassinations. General Babangida, who had annulled the election, ceded power to corporate mogul Ernest Shonekan. Shonekan himself was overthrown less than 3 months later by General Sani Abacha. Abiola, who had won the election, was detained. After the death of General Sani Abacha, there was hope that the political logjam would be resolved. Then, 4 years into his detention, Abiola died mysteriously while meeting with the American diplomats in Abuja. Nigeria was now indeed in a pot of boiling water. Someone had to cool it down somehow.
Nigeria was in turmoil. There is a lot of agitation from the politicians for the military to go back to the barracks and hand over to an elected government.
As a result of that agitation, there are a lot of movements spearheaded by NADECO, campaigning and making life ungovernable at that time for the military regime. As a result of which there are a lot of disturbances, a lot of curfews, a lot of skirmishes here and there, and a lot of things were not what they should be. Then when Providence brought me into power, not only the politicians in the country were divided, people were thinking for their regions and local governments rather than thinking for Nigeria. And that phenomenon was creeping gradually into the military. The military, where we have taken an oath to defend the Constitution and defend the integrity of Nigeria, sadly the military started thinking about their regions and so on. And that is unacceptable for us who took over the mantle of leadership. Nigerians wanted the military out of power. They wanted to have democracy. They wanted political parties and so on. So we tried as much as possible to provide what Nigerians are asking, and we did.
Typical military tradition, and what happens in most African countries, Abdulsalami will want to take at least 3, 4 or more years. But when the information became clear that no, Abdulsalami didn't want to stay beyond a year, and they wanted democracy to take off, people were all excited. Then I was a civil servant. I was not in politics then, but everybody expected that in a political dispensation, people interrogate issues. During military, you don't have a national assembly, you don't have state assemblies. So government decides to do whatever they want to do.
Chief Olusegun Obasanjo re-emerged again as the leader of the Nigerian nation, after being at the top 20 years before, then as a military head of state.
Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, let me at this juncture congratulate our new President, General Matthew Aremu Okekiola Obasanjo, and that I will devote myself to the service and well-being of the people of Nigeria. So help me God.
Democracy was back in Nigeria. After 16 years of military rule, Nigerians could finally determine their fates at the polling booth. But there was something missing. Successive presidents chose to ignore the election and personalities that had made Nigeria's longest uninterrupted romance with democracy possible. The June 12th election was a shadow trailing Nigeria's democracy.
Abiola is the father, the creator, the man who sacrificed everything, his comfort, his family life, his wealth, everything for the sake of this country, for the sake of the current democracy, whether they like it or not.
In 2015, something unprecedented happened in Nigerian democracy. An opposition party won the presidential election against the ruling party. The new president, Muhammadu Buhari, decided it was time to honor the heroes of the past that made today possible.
Following his declaration on Wednesday that henceforth June 12 be observed as Democracy Day in Nigeria and that some heroes of democracy be given national honors, President Muhammadu Buhari has directed the Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, Abubakar Malami, to take immediate steps to publish the order.
We need to encourage Mr. President. What he has started took us 25 years to achieve. What the president did, the president meant well. We are supposed to support this.
I want to believe it's a very serious and a very good handshake across Nigeria. And this is part of the things we must have to look after and ensure that Nigeria remains a united country.
I got a call
from the late Chief of Staff's office, Madam Abakiari, followed by the Office of the Secretary to the Federal Government.
I was just in this Mexican restaurant in the hotel by myself when the phone rang, and it was my immediate junior brother, Jamu. He said, President Buhari is recognizing Daddy on June 12th. When he said that, I just felt my body actually, my spirit just leave my body. I felt it lift off, almost as if to say that, well, my work here is done. I was so happy because it had already been 25 years that we had been waiting for any kind of acknowledgement.
I heard it from my brother, not my biological brother, but my adopted brother, Mr. Jindu Uguzo, who my dad adopted as a son. So he called me and said, am I listening to the news? I said, the news is always the same old thing. He said, I should turn it on. They don't give our Baba award. I said, who gave it? He said, Buhari. So I said, what's the award about? He said, they finally recognized June 12th, and that MK Abiola will be given the recognition of the previous president, although was not sworn in, and will be given the award of the GCFR, Grand Commander of the Federal Republic, and that chief was also given GCON. So I turned on the TV, I screamed.
I was actually in Saudi Arabia performing the Hajj, which is the Muslim pilgrimage. And I was in Medina, actually. I had finished the rituals in Mecca. And I was rounding up in Medina, and I was called and told to come because there would be an event for which I would be required on June 12th.
It was one of the happiest days to have eventually gotten the recognition I think he well deserves for what he had done for Nigeria. And despite everything, he has never gotten a national honor of any sort. He has gotten a lot of chieftaincy titles across Nigeria, but never had a national honor. And the biggest honor to date has been from the people themselves. Giving him the GCFR was the next possible best thing they could have done, or we could have done, for all he had given up for everyone, to have a democratic government.
I consider it a great privilege to welcome all of you to this auspicious occasion and a historic day in the life of our dear nation, Nigeria. This is particularly a significant event as it marks government's proclamation of June 12 as Democracy Day and its public acknowledgement of our heroes past, whose supreme efforts laid the foundation for our nascent democracy.
It was unbelievable. I think the June 12th elections were annulled in 1993, and President Buhari gave the acknowledgement of June 12th in 2018. That's 25 years, thereabouts. I believe that despite concerted actions and lobby and pressure on various governments, beginning with the government of Obasanjo in 1999, until the arrival of President Buhari to the presidency, no much movement was made to acknowledge June 12th for what it was. And that it was coming 25 years later, and that action being taken by President Buhari was unexpected, pleasant shock, and I think there was relief that there was some level of closure to to this festering wound in our democratic process and in our national psyche.
Were you not worried or had second thought because there had been many presidents before you that didn't do what you did? Did it not bother you?
This man was accepted, as I said, by the whole country. He went all over the country. He was understood by Nigerians. He was accepted, and he was elected. He picked another Muslim like him. Nobody talked about religion. Nobody talked about ethnicity. And I think we missed an opportunity there of really doing away with religious and ethnic politics in Nigeria.
May I now invite a member of the family of Chief Gani Fayomi, who will be decorated this morning with the award of GCON, Mrs. Ganiat Bukola Fayomi.
I think I nearly misbehaved on that day because out of exhilarating passion, my mom was there with us, so I said, well, this award, you are the woman meant to go and collect it because you have been to all the 49 detention centers and the 15 prisons which this man has been held while in his lifetime. She said, I'm the first one. I said, yes, I know, but people prefer to see you there because they know most of the pictures we see. Once Chief is released, she's there.
I must congratulate President Muhammad Buhari for this gesture. You are the first sensitive and reasonable head of state we have had in this country. You are the first head of state that has listened to his people, and you have acted accordingly. June 12 is the foundation of democracy in this country. The recognition of Chief MKO Abiola as president-elect in this country, not as a presumed winner. He was the winner. I thank God that I'm seeing today.
The fact that he was awarded that posthumously indicates recognition of June 12th. And normally, the vice president is conferred the national honor of the Grand Commander of the Order of Niger, which was conferred on me. That also is a symbolic recognition of the fact that the ticket prevailed.
Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I now have the singular honor and privilege of inviting Kola Abiola to please come forward to receive the posthumous award of his dad.
The first thing I wanted to do was introduce myself as MKO, to express the fact that I believe he was in the room that day.
Your Excellency, I present Bashorun Moshood Kashimawo Olawale Abiola for the conferment of the posthumous award of the Grand Commander of the Federal Republic, GCFR.
Personally, I knew late Abiola and Babagana Kingibe. The way he used his resources and energy to be accepted by the whole country, I think is really commendable. And the question of partisan politics in Nigeria involving religion and ethnicity would have gone. Look at what he did. He went as far as Maiduguri to pick a Muslim. He was a Muslim. Babagana Kingibe is a Muslim from the north. But nobody talked about religion or that he was Yoruba and Babagana is Kanuri. People took them as Nigerian. I think that was the biggest success of Abiola, which made an impression in me that when I have the opportunity, I want to make sure that his name has been put in gold right away.
Our decision to recognize and honor June 12 and its actors is in the national interest. It is aimed at settling national healing process and the reconciliation of the 25-year history wound caused by the annulment of the June 12 elections. I earnestly invite all Nigerians across all our national divide to accept it in good faith.
President Buhari and Chief Abiola were very unlikely pair for President Buhari to be magnanimous in acknowledging his victory. It was said that indeed Chief Abiola was key financier of the military push, which removed President Buhari when he was military head of state at the time. Generally, it's normal human nature not to be forgiving. But it said a lot of President Buhari that he had the magnanimity, the objectivity, the patriotism, and the commitment to democracy that such personal details didn't stop him from doing the right thing.
Who would have ever believed, given the relationship that you had with Chief N.K. Abiola, that you would be the instrument God would use to honor this man and to bring reconciliation and healing to the country? You apologized to my family, and it touched my heart. You know that I lost also my mother in this struggle, so that apology meant so much. Let me use this opportunity on behalf of Chief N.K. Abiola, because I know what he would have done. Let me use this opportunity to apologize to you, to apologize to your family for anything that he might have done to harm you and to harm your family. Just 6 days after my first out-of-body experience, I had yet another out-of-body experience, and I felt that my parents came to look and to see. I felt like I was representing them at that moment in that space. And I tried to communicate to the president, to the government, to the people, the immense privilege that our family had had to play the role that we played.
June 12th is the sort of gold standard, really, for Nigerian elections, which we should try and match up to as we move on from democratic elections to democratic elections. June 12th also set our gold standard in terms of how the nation should be, how the nation was united behind a vision rather than behind the multifarious fault lines, whether religion or tribe or region or whatever. It was really a nationally created event. Chief Abiola was a symbol. We were more or less the torch bearers, but really June 12th was the creation of the Nigerian people. On that day, I think they showed that all the cleavages which politicians normally exploit for electoral value, they were absent.
The significance of what we are doing today is that the president has had the courage to do what others fail to do. Secondly, he has shown tremendous courage in recognizing Abiola as the president of this country.
I am more than happy. I am more than happy because at least people who said we worked for nothing, now I understand. Even if it's politics, it's good that we have got it now.
When we state in our anthem that the labors of Europe shall never be in vain, this is a typical example of a Nigeria that has demonstrated that.
At long last, victory has been granted to the person who won an election. That all the pretense we have had over the years have been brought to an end.
Yes, the governor of Lagos State have declared June 12th a work-free day in this country in recognition of this. That's monumental sacrifice. So it was not new to me. It touched my heart and it shook every aspect of me. Brought some memories back. And I was full of joy that at least I was part of a struggle to actualize that date and to immortalize the date.
And so, the ills of a quarter of a century were mended by the most unlikely president. The wounds that had festered for 2.5 decades started a healing process in the young Nigerian nation. Now, the future beckons.
The democracy is still evolving and we are consolidating. Sometimes, like in a football tournament, you want your team to quickly score, forgetting that the others two are 11 players. Somebody is running, you think he's not running fast enough. So we are evolving. Every other country passed through the stages we have followed. The only thing they say that you are no longer discovering the wheel, so you should move faster than those who started it. But there's no country that just woke up and get to where they are. Even if the big countries we are reading about, they have their own history. They have their low periods, they have their high periods.
I would say so far so good. You know, developing nation is a continuous process. There are some successes, there are some lapses here and there. But as we go on, I hope the younger generation will better the society and better the political system that is growing in the country.
I think in Nigeria we should congratulate ourselves. We are bigger. We have about 250 cultures, each one thinking superior to the other. Yet we are consolidating very seriously the values of multi-party democratic system. The elite should work very hard to educate people on the values of democracy, that is respect for the weak and the strong.